Hello, everybody. Once again, it's Dave Stevens here, joining you from the home offices here in Bristol, Connecticut. I'm excited to bring in my partner. That would be Troy Geary, who's in this way in Minnesota. Troy, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Dave. How are you doing?
Good. Now, you are responsible for tonight's guest, Madison Ward, who is minus the Mama Bear tonight. But how did you discover their music? And I want to play a clip here, but just how did you discover our new guest tonight?
In 2017, I was at Big Slick. I go to that charity every year. It's a charity that helps Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City. And Madison was one of their guests that weekend. He helped performed in the auction and the party. And I met him at the Royals baseball game. And great music. He has a lot of good songs, folk music. And yeah, you should check it out. Here's a clip here.
Yeah, let's play it for him.
How about we just sing evergreen? Your pain loves together, baby. Ah, baby. Ah, where you go, let call your lights. So don't fire, baby. Ah, baby. Ah, silent movies make more money. So how about make more money, girl?
All right, well, let's bring in our guest tonight, Madison Ward. Madison, that's quite impressive. So, thanks for joining the Gary Stein and Steven show and being a part of music history. You're our first music guest.
Hey, thanks so much. Thanks for having me. I'm glad I can break the mold here and be the first musician on a sports podcast. It feels good. Feels like I'm accomplishing something.
Well,
And
Madison, you're sitting there in your studio tonight, and again, thank you for being a part of this. A lot of people they start their careers, as far as living on their own, and your career, you were a musician, but did you really need your mama to help you? Did you really?
yes, I was terrified of the world. I didn't trust anyone, and I needed my parents. I was actually, I mean, I don't know. My mom, she kicked me out of the house at 19. She made me go live with my brother, and music was never a thing I was pursuing. And then she was still playing in a lot of coffee shops, and she kept wanting me to go join her on stage. So it ended up really sort of growing organically, and I would join her on stage, and we would play here and there. Then I just finally said, I think we just need to keep doing this. We're building some sort of a little bit of a fan base, and people are requesting original music. So we just kept on going, and yeah, she was a trooper. She liked the kind of music I was writing, and she comes out of that early '70s folk sort of era, and I was bringing sort of a much different sort of I guess dynamic to it. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if I don't know if I needed my mom, but I'm glad I had her, and I'm glad that we went the direction that we did. Most definitely.
Awesome. Well, I was telling people earlier. I met you at Big Slick in 2017. Can you talk about that weekend and what Kansas City and Children's Mercy Hospital, what Big Slick means to them, and meant to you that week that you were part of a great weekend?
Oh, it was beautiful, a beautiful weekend. I'll never forget it. Jason Sudeikis, who is part of Big Slick, one of the, I think is it four members total or five?
Yeah, four now. Yeah, or
Yeah,
five.
and
Five. Sorry.
five who started Big Slick in the charity weekend for Children's Mercy, and he saw a show of mine in New York and was a big supporter. We come from the same home team, and he hit me up and called me and just asked me to come out and asked if my mom and I would, and it was a beautiful time. Just doing something real interesting. I was a duck out of water or a fish out of water. Ducks don't. I don't know if they get out of water. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I took to it like duck to water, but I was a fish out of water, and so it was really a lot to process for me at that time, but it was a beautiful thing, and I knew why everyone was there. So it was a real sort of it was so interesting to see how much of Kansas City sort of rallies around this cause and around this weekend. And sure, these all these celebrities there, but it's really a communal sort of just weekend, and I was humbled to be a part of it. It was incredible.
And Madison, for you, I mean, it was for many football players or for fans, especially Kansas City fans, it was a dream come true, and you actually had a great experience with one of your teammates, who I mean, it's kind of really funny to listen to, but it's such a cool organic moment that you had.
Yes, one of my teammates that was there, Travis Kelsey, was somebody who I did not realize was Travis Kelsey. I didn't know. I don't know anything about sports. It's terrible, I know, but I was sitting next to him for, I want to say, a good 20 minutes before I found out who he was. And I was sitting next to him, and I went up to they took me up to bat during the baseball game, and I struck out. By the way, I'm sure Troy can probably attest to this. He was there that weekend. I struck out in front of everyone, and they gave me multiple swings. I didn't know what I was doing. So the way they were lobbing this softball up was I'd never prepared for something like that. And I go and I sit down, and then this guy next to me who looked like a Greek god, by the way. I had never seen a human being like this in real life. And I just kept wondering, who is this guy? And I found out later he was Travis Kelsey. He gets up, takes a swing on the first swing, I think, knocks the ball out of the park, goes around the bases, not just once, but he goes around like multiple times. He just keeps on going around home, and everyone's cheering. And I'm just hoping that they forget what I did just a couple plays before.
Now, when you were in the dugout, did he give you any Gatorade or any financial advice? Or I mean, what do you talk about when you're sitting next to one of the most beloved sports stars in the city, and then you've got this amazing musician that's kind of going, "I'm just taking in the moment."
Oh man, I wish he gave me some financial advice. That would have been incredible. But it was no, we really didn't talk much. I mean, I said hello to him, and I think if anything, he might have been happy that there was someone who wasn't just fawning over his entire career, but he sat there and he chewed gum, and I felt like I felt like a stud being next to him. I felt like I was like one of the KC Chiefs. It was great.
Awesome. You have a great ability to take thoughts and songs and write songs for out of the blue, like spontaneously. How do you do that?
Oh man, I don't know. I think I always had a somewhat ability to just sort of to never be bored, to just sort of play with ideas and thoughts, and then melodies. I think I realized when I was maybe about 19ish that melodies kind of come to me very easily, and it was something that I never thought I would try to, perfect or try to go play in front of people. But it's really hard to describe. I think I don't think I'll ever run out of melodies. I think the hard part is really songwriting, making a true beginning, middle, and end, and go perform it with the guitar and all that stuff. But um, yeah, I've always had fun with that, being real creative. My mom bringing me up in a house with music, and my brother and sister and I, we always had to use our imagination. We didn't grow up with a lot of money, so it was always just use our imagination, never be bored. Bored was not an option. And we all sort of took to the arts in our own different ways. My brother is a painter. My sister, she has a lot of artistic abilities, and I took to music, and it's sort of organic. I don't really know.
You seem like you really get into it when you're on stage. I mean, when you're performing, you are so into the moment, as we're looking here on screen. I mean, do you get embarrassed, or does it just become natural instinct? I mean, where do you go to? What zone do you go to when you're on stage?
Well, whenever I was a kid, I used to always want to be an actor because my uncle, he's a famous actor, Isaiah Whitlock Jr. He's from shows like The Wire and a lot of Spike Lee movies, and I used to want to be like him. So when I was a kid, I would do play theater acting, and I'd be on stage often. And so that was an early thing that I never really had to deal with, was the stage fright at all. So sort of getting on stage and then just going somewhere else, it always felt really natural. And thankfully, I'm so glad that I did those plays at an early age and just sort of got over that hump. And I used to tell my mom all the time, we would be on a stage, and I would always say, like, even if we're on the stage of a big theater or anything like that, the human body is only this big. So we only exist in this little parameter that is around us and our guitars. And that's all that we need to control. We don't need to control the rest of the room. We don't need to control other people. And a crowd of people can be real intimidating. But if you look at people as individuals, that's so much less intimidating. Everybody is just an individual, and they just all happen to be standing next to each other. So um, yeah, I don't know. I think when you break it down, you can zone out a bit.
Awesome. What do you remember most about your network debut on the Late Show with David Letterman?
Oh man, what do I remember most? I think what I remember most was Dave made a joke after we performed, and he came over and he said, "My mom and I used to play too, and we couldn't get arrested." And I just remember after that, after all the lights were over and the camera was off, he claps and then he turns to us and he gives us a thumbs up. And so I see the thumbs up and I was like, okay, cool, nice. And then he claps again, and then he looks back at us and gives us another thumbs up. And I kept thinking, does he want us to play another song? I didn't know what we were supposed to do, but because it was very robotic, like clap, thumb, look at the audience, clap, thumb. So I just stood there, and they were like, "Okay, we're done. Get on, go on back to Kansas City, go home."
What did that do that night, though? I mean, you must have had people that crawled out of the woodworks hadn't seen you, and suddenly, I mean, such an like millions of people still in those days and age. I mean, it must have been unprecedented for you.
Oh, it was incredible. You got teachers who told you weren't worth anything or hitting you up. You got girls who never wanted to go out with you or hitting you up. People you haven't seen since kindergarten. Like, hey, remember me? I loaned you $5, and it's very bizarre. Like the amount the city was rallying sort of around that moment. We before we went to do Letterman, you know how he has that guy that works in that diner? His name's like, I think, Rupert or something like that. It's he's been with them for years. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but there's a diner that's right down the street, and they had us go and do a radio interview in that diner moments before going on stage. And the radio interview was with 96.5 The Buzz, our hometown station. So we had to do that interview, and he's like, "Well, we're all watching you." The host is like, "We're all pulling for you. Everybody's back home. We can't wait to see what you're gonna do." And we're like, "Oh!" And that moment really put the pressure on, where you're like, "Oh, okay. I think this is maybe like you said, unprecedented." So it was a lot to take in.
And then that song started hitting the charts. I mean, it really was a boost for such a. Again, it's not a derogatory thing, but the music that you do is not always in the spotlight. It's not
Not at
one of
all.
those things where you grow up and say, "I want to do folk music," right?
Exactly, exactly. And my parents, they played folk music when we were growing up, and I liked it. I didn't dislike it, but my brother and I, we went off on a whole nother journey of like just hip hop. It was like a lot of hip hop music we grew up on, and by the time I started picking up a guitar again and writing for myself, I appreciated what my mom did my whole life. I appreciated what all songwriters were doing on a whole different level. Um, and we also hit sort of a folk music boom, I think, in this country. I think the culture sort of always comes back around to folk music. And if it's not in the zeitgeist, it kind of comes back around. It's sort of cyclical. And I think at around 2012-ish is where it really started taking a turn upward. And I think my mom and I sort of caught that wave. And I think it's kind of weighing down again, but it's going to come back, and it just keeps on going. So it was definitely a beautiful time.
Well, it's beautiful. This is a great show, and we're going to take a break because we actually have people that are paying us to do things tonight. So stay with us. Madison Ward is with us, but we got to pay some bills. We got some great new shirts that got sent to us in the mail by the Fresh Clean Tees. How are you feeling about your shirts, Troy? Do you feel like that?
Well,
Like we
yeah, they're really comfortable, nice and soft. So great
and we've
shirts.
got this whole black white thing going with Madison, but we're going to pay the bills. We'll be back right after this.
Hello there, everybody. This is Mel Allen. How about that? They're standing ovation.
It is goosebump time. It always is on opening day with great ceremonies before the game.
I'm John Miller, along with Joe Angel. And in a moment, Joe will be back with a look at the starting lineups after these messages.
Back. Goodbye! Oh, off the facade of the second deck.
All right, welcome back. I'm Dave Stevens. You're here with Geary, Stein, and Stevens. Let me bring back in Troy. Let me bring in Madison Ward, our musician for tonight, who's got his guitar in hand. And Madison, before I let Troy ask you the next question, you're just sitting there strumming. Do tunes pop into your head? You got to put them in your cell phone. Like, what's the structure for the basis of the songs that you write?
That's exactly how it is. It's a cell phone sort of situation, and which is maybe not quite as pure as people that walk around with like a booklet with a pen. But I like the cell phone. I think it's really good. It's a good tool. I'll be out and about, and a melody might come to me, and I just really want to get the melody down, so I'll hum it into my phone. And then you get home, and then you start tackling it more and more, and the phone is just insane. If anybody ever found it, I would just die. I don't want them to look at what's what's in. It's so many constant just melodies and notes and discarded songs, half written, half baked. And then some of them are songs that you forget about. You'll come back to it. It'll be months down the road. You go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't continue going with this. And so, but yeah, it's really, that's how the melody's going to come. And then you get a guitar and you just, like we were saying, just sit here, pick, and just start picking something, and anything that really catches your attention. It's got to be inspiration based. I think sometimes you can force yourself to write, but if you really try to really pay attention to inspiration moments where you're like, I don't know how I got here. This just came out of thin air, and try to put that down on paper as much as possible.
Great. Who were some of your musical influences, past and current?
Musical influences, past and current. I thought about this recently. Like when people, sometimes people will say like, "Who was your first concert that you went to go see?" And I keep trying to think, and I can't remember who my first concert ever was. But I would have to say I think it was probably my mom. She was always playing in these coffee shops all the time, and I saw it at a young age. And earliest memory I have is like 3 years old, seeing her in Chicago playing in a coffee shop, and that had to have had some sort of subconscious influence on me without me even knowing about it. But in terms of people outside of our bloodline, I would say I was a big fan of Tom Waits. My dad raised me on Tom Waits, and I didn't really get Tom Waits until I turned 19. He something about him is so enigmatic and so unique and original, and he's there's a couple artists he might have a little bit of overlap with, but his music is just pure poetry if you just read it. And my dad played him all the time growing up, and I didn't get him until I started writing music, and then I really appreciated him. Elliott Smith is someone who I've really appreciated. My sister turned me on to Elliott Smith, and Jack White and the White Stripes, and Nick Drake is another person. Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson is someone who I mentioned. Uh, Sometimes he gets a bad rap. Some people think that he might, I guess, maybe almost be a little bit on the corny side, but I actually think he's probably one of the best songwriters of my generation. And coming up, I think a lot of people were trying to emulate Jack Johnson and trying to figure out what he was doing. And it's so a part of his soul and his spirit that I don't think it's much harder to emulate something that you think is simple, that you think that I can go do that. And then you try and you're like, oh no, that guy, that's his soul. I'm doing an impersonation of that. So yeah, people like that.
Madison, you guys kind of really, 2015 was like when you guys really kind of exploded with that debut album. You guys were on, Things Happen with you and Letterman. You were on the BBC. You were on CBS This Morning. I mean, what was that like when, again, we talk about a genre of music that doesn't get a lot of play, yet it's been around forever, and yet it's still, how do you discover it? But that stretch of time you had with your mother Ruth, I mean, what was that like? That core of when, like, boom, hey, we're not supposed to be here.
Right, right. You always have that feeling of like we're not supposed to be here. You have like sort of this, a little bit of imposter syndrome, which I think which is very natural. And but also it's just too big to manage. It's too big to really process. If you think about it too long, you won't be doing your job anymore. So what we were doing was just sort of, we're simple-minded folks, so we just kind of put our head down and try to just keep on going. And you can only sit in a moment for so long before you have to go do the next show and do the next meet your next obligation. So we sort of had blinders up a little bit, um, which is a blessing and a curse. Sometimes you wish that you take things in a little bit more, but I was 26 years old, and I had only been playing for not too long prior to that. So there was a bit of me that had like a sort of a responsibility to not try to soak up too much of the things that were surrounding us, and try to just really not fall flat on our face whenever we got on stage. Because I mean, I was thrusted into a lot of situations that were beyond my experience and my expertise and my knowledge, and I was aware of that. And so I always tried to keep that in mind. Just take it slow, go tread lightly, and do as well as you can, play as well as you can.
Great. You also have a podcast called Mad Mama Half Happy Hour. Sorry.
Yes.
How did that start? And you also had some notable guests on the show: Will Forte, Kansas City, Heidi Gardner, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and a good friend of Big Slick, and another event Jason Sudeikis does, Fred Armisen.
Yeah, we this was during the pandemic. You know how I mean, all of these ideas, a lot of people had these ideas that were born out of the pandemic. And I mean it was one of those things where like, we'll do it for a little bit, and we probably should stop. We're still going, and we enjoy playing together, and so it was sort of a way to kind of keep us practicing. And we couldn't see each other too much through the pandemic. It was pretty distanced and all that, and so but we yeah, I mean, it was a good way to keep practicing, keep playing, and keep on keep your brain fresh. It's the podcast, we're constantly riffing and making songs up on the fly, based on what we're talking about in the moment. And yeah, we just sit there with guitars, we talk. I think it's kind of, in some weird way, making my mom and I almost closer in a way. And it's just nice to force yourself to have a conversation all the time. In today's world of technology, it's conversations are rare. I think that's why podcasts are so incredible. People want to hear people just talk. And so her and I are just silly. It's just as ridiculously ranting as possible. But then we play some music every once in a while. And I don't, and it's so unpolished, and that's the beauty of not having to. It doesn't have to sound great. It's just Mama Bear, you got any songs? I don't know. You got anything? I let her hear things I'm working on in the moment. I was writing this yesterday. Is this any good? And so it's fun. It's just yeah, we've done like 77 episodes I think now, and so we're gonna keep on
Wow.
going. Yeah.
And Madison, you're sitting there with a guitar. So if you got a riff or something like, I got no legs, I'm sitting on the floor, my friend Madison's taking me out the door, something like, are you working on anything?
Hey, what do you think of this song? I wrote this a long time ago, and I haven't kept on. I never play this, but I
All
was
right.
just thinking about it
An
recently.
exclusive. Here we go.
But I'm singing very quietly because these are on laptop mics. Here we go.
You're okay.
Burn, 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 Birmingham is where she said she was from. That's no lie. Barbados is where she flew to and stopped on a dime. Where she flew to and stopped on a dime. Farming was tough and they had about enough till they saw what the child could do. She had a skill Gandhi would kill for the secrets on how it all grew. For the secrets on how it all grew. She said, bury your seeds, hide 'em in deep. We've got some digging to do. Bury your seeds, hide 'em in deep. We've got some digging to do. August came, it was the most fruitful year they had seen. Not one to groan, now they had grown more than gold plates could buy for a queen. More than silver could buy for a queen. That girl grew up and she called all the bluffs of the ones who said she was untrue. Firm she did stand, Birmingham is where she flew back to teach what she knew. Yes, she told those folks how it all grew. She said, bury your seeds, hide 'em in deep. We've got some digging to do. Bury your seeds, hide 'em in deep. Whoa, whoa. We've got some digging to do. We've got some digging to do. We've got some digging to do. We've got some digging to do.
Oh man, that was real. That was like a real song, my friend.
I wrote that when I was really young and I forgot all about it.
Wow.
Just recently
Holy
sort of.
cow. That was
Oh, thank you.
beautiful. That was like I
Thank
felt like
you.
I had channeled my inner John Denver, but still like, it was really like that's a real song. Like
Oh,
what
thank
are you gonna do
you.
with that thing?
I don't know. I mean, I just recently, well, like I was telling you about how you can rediscover things you've written. I recently rediscovered that one, so I mean, I would love to record it. I used to play it when I think I wrote it when I was 21 or something. But I really like it.
So with COVID and everything, what's next for you and Mama? Like I know you guys are doing remote things, but as far as recording and things where you can do tracks and things like what's next for you guys? You're gonna hit the road. I mean, the fans probably want to see you guys back out, right?
Well, we still play together, but like during the pandemic, I started writing a bunch of solo music, and I asked her what she felt about me kind of doing some solo project right now, and she gave me her blessing. She said she fully supported it, and and I'm starting to do some shows now with more of this solo music, and the response has been really heartwarming because I didn't know how people were going to sort of ingest that idea. And recently did a show locally at Crossroads Hotel, a part of the Rooftop series, and it was basically a sold out show of people who supported it, and they were very open to it and kind. And so I'm not sure in terms of recording. I don't know if it'll be a Madison Ward of the Mama Bear record or if I'll just put out some solo music right now. But I'm enjoying figuring it out though.
Well, I know people can get the music at MadisonWardTheMamaBear.com. Where can they see your guys' podcast?
Mad Mama Half Happy Hour. You can find that anywhere. Just if you want to hear two people riffing who know nothing about the world, zero information, you will leave with more questions, and you'll have a couple. You'll have some melody. Hopefully our love for each other does shine through the podcast, because people have always thought my mom and I were just the best of friends, and that's why we played together. I think the playing together made us more closer friends. And I think prior to the playing together, we were just in our own worlds. So it's the art and the music and the conversation can really truly transform relationships. So
And unlike the Beatles, you can't really break up with your mom, right?
no, you can't break up. I wouldn't want to. No, she's great. She's a great artist, and she has one of the best voices I think I've ever heard in my life.
Well, thanks, Troy. Man, hey, wow, thanks for introducing us to Madison. I mean, wow, what where can people get your music? Is another place I want to know.
Yeah, you can get music online wherever people get music online. There's record shops or same with the pod. It's yeah, I don't know, where do people buy music these days? I'm not. It's yeah, you Google it. I'm sure some kid selling his old vinyl on eBay.
Yeah. All right, Troy.
Yeah.
Final thoughts as we head out.
Yeah, I mean, you just have a great and canty ability to storytell with your music, and I encourage everybody to become a fan of yours because I definitely am.
Oh, thanks, man, and it's
Absolutely.
great seeing you again too. We were on a bowling team together, right?
Yeah, you were
Yeah,
my
Big
bowling
Slick
teammate.
Bowling.
Did we win?
We did,
We did win.
and I think it was all you. You know, I think you carried the team.
No. Where,
Yeah,
well, now who else was on that? Because Weird Al was in the.
we had Josh Hopkins. He was on. I think he was on Private Practice on ABC, and
Yeah.
Kevin Rom I think was on our team also. But
Oh, Kevin Rom. Yes,
yeah,
my
Mad Men.
mom. My mom was freaking out with Kevin Rom. She's a huge Mad Men person, and I love Mad Men too. So when she saw Kevin Rom, she about
I
died.
do have
Bigger
a
than Travis Kelsey in
I,
certain aspects, right?
I
The
barely
mom.
remember. I barely remember Travis Kelsey. All Kevin Rom.
have
Yeah,
one. I do have one quick question to ask you before we let you go.
yeah,
And a lot of people don't know that Fred Armisen is an incredible drummer. Have you? I'm sure you've worked with him. With the Steps of Faith or the Bill Crumb Steps of Faith and all that
yeah.
stuff there.
Thundergong.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Thundergong. Yeah, that's what it is.
yeah, Thundergong. So they do Thundergong annually. I think I've done it 3 times. I think, and I think for 2 of those, I hung out with Fred, and I haven't worked with him, but I had him play my mom's guitar once because I really wanted him to. It was her guitar she's had for 40 years. I wanted him to
Is that like
play.
using somebody's razor? Is that a no-no?
No, well, it's an old school. I don't know. For me, it's never a no-no, but for some folks, it's like, how dare you? But I was like, it's Fred Armisen. This guy's got to play it. And that guitar ended up getting stolen, by the way, sadly. But
Oh
Fred
no.
Fred Armisen got to play it, and I remember he talked. I remember him telling me some great piece of advice. A capo is something that you change the pitch of a guitar with, in the key or whatever, and he was talking about what if you put a capo on every single fret of the guitar, which should just be chaos. But that
It'd
was
be a
his
big
advice.
guitar too. It'd be a
Yeah,
long ass
exactly.
guitar, right?
Exactly.
Well,
But
Madison,
he's great.
thanks for joining us a little bit, and I hope you put that song on an album. That was a great song. I was just thinking,
Oh man.
like singing that song to your kid, and just almost like a Pooh Corner type song. So
Thank you
thanks
so
for
much.
thanks for joining us and enlightening us. And again, you guys can get your music from Madison Ward and Mama Bear. check out their podcast, check out their music. And again, we got continuing stars like Madisen. So thanks for joining us. We're going to continue to shine spotlights on sports and all kinds of worlds. We got Lee Steinberg coming up tomorrow, Chuck Knobloch next week. Again, thanks to our wonderful sponsors as they start to add up. Of course, we got the fresh, clean tees that we're wearing. As we said, we look pretty good in those tonight. And of course, Manscaped, FanDuel, Pro Stance, Coca-Cola. If I forgot anybody, I apologize. So let's just wave to all of our friends and say good night, everybody. It was a great night. We had fun. Thank you, Madisen. Thank you, Troy. Until you see us again, this is Dave Stevens. Have a great night.
Thank you.